I know that Mr. and Mrs. Hard that are here tonight remember Frank when he was Frankie, wee little guy. And Mrs. Hard is from Bethesda Church in Minneapolis. I was a member of that church in 1948. I'm still an associate member. It's the only church really I've ever joined since I've been saved. You sort of automatically become a member of a church when you're a pastor, but anyway, that's the church that I joined, and I had a wonderful experience under Pastor Prince there many years ago. When I was 17 years old, I was a member of a church, but I wasn't a Christian. And I had done everything that there was to become a Christian except the main thing. One day when I ran home from school, I was in high school, a senior, and we used to get a half hour off for lunch, and I would run all the way home, about 3 or 4 blocks, and Mother would have the sandwiches on the table, and, we'd inhale those and then run back. And so when I got home, and Mother said, there's no bread. She gave me 11 cents, and she said, go down to the NP and get a loaf of bread. That's what bread cost in those days. And so I ran down, got a loaf of Wonder Bread, put it under my arm, and headed back toward home, and a man caught step with me. I knew who the man was, but not really very well. But, as a senior in high school, I was willing to talk to anybody about anything. And this fellow went quickly from politics to philosophy to religion, just, in a few steps. By the time we got to the corner where he was going this way and I was going this way, he said, what are you? And I said, I'm a Methodist. Now, I could have been a Lutheran or a Baptist or whatever. Most of us are whatever our parents were. But I said, I'm a Methodist. And he said, well, there's 2 kinds of Methodists. And I thought, well, I go to the Grace Methodist Church on Shenango Street, and there's First Methodist across town. Before I could answer, he said, the saved and the lost, which kind are you? Well, I said, I guess I'm a saved Methodist. And he said, what are you basing that on? Well, baptized, and when I was 12 years old, I took the pastor's course and joined the church. He didn't say anything. I said, well, take communion. I'm an usher. And if they ever need an extra Sunday school teacher, they call on me. And he still didn't say anything. I said, well, I don't drink. I don't swear. I was about ready to tell him I'm nice to my mother. I thought that would be too good. He said, you know what the Bible calls all of that? I said, that's good, isn't it? He said, no, the Bible says all of our righteousnesses are as filthy rags. And I looked him right in the eye and said, well, if that's not the way, what is the way? Just like putting your neck right into a noose. And he looked me right in the eye and he said, Jesus Christ. And I think he probably quoted John 14:6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. But I noticed that bread under my arm was getting smaller and smaller. And I said, I have to get home. My mother wants me to get home with this bread. So I ran home and had the sandwiches. And as I went back to school, for the first time in my life, I realized that I was a sinner. Now, you have a tendency to compare ourselves with ourselves, the Bible says. I compare myself with other people, and when you do that, you always come out on top. But when I heard about Jesus Christ being the way and the truth that this man had spoken to me about, I realized that I was a sinner. And before I got to school, that burden was so heavy on me. I don't know what happened after that. For several weeks, it seemed like, I had this burden on my back. And then my cousin, who was the head usher at the church, says, boys, there were 16 of us. Boys, they were going to have some special meetings coming up next week. There's a converted Jewish rabbi that's going to speak. And now if we all cooperate, we'll only have to go one extra meeting each. You talk about promotion. That was it, wasn't it? So, 16 boys, 4 each, one night. So, anyway, he told us what night we had and everything. So I was on for Sunday night. And so I listened to Mr. Beskin. When he came into the pulpit, he did something different than our pastor did. He had his Bible right on his breast. He came in like this and opened the Bible. And our pastor had a notebook, and he opened the notebook and read from it. This man, when he got up and preached, he preached right from the Bible. The other thing was kind of strange. I didn't know what a converted Jewish rabbi would be doing, or even why he would be there. We had been taught, a man had a religion, which everybody ought to have, to be a good citizen, that, we should respect one another's religion. But then if a man were a rabbi, or a teacher, or a preacher in a Jewish synagogue, then why would he be converted, and why would he be preaching in our church? You see, this all was going around in my mind. But he opened the Bible and preached the gospel, the good news. Now, I remember one thing that Sunday night, that there was a man that had the answer to this problem on my back. Monday, I could hardly wait till school was out. I ran home, ran upstairs, put my suit on. My father, as most of you know, was an automobile dealer, and we always had what I would call a semi-formal meal at home because my father might bring a customer home. He never would tell Mother. Every night we had a nice meal in case he brought a customer home. That was the very highest compliment that you could pay to a prospective Chrysler driver. And so there was nobody came that night, and we're eating a meal, and Dad looks over to see I had my suit on. He said, "Where are you going tonight?" Of course, he thought I was going down to Sharon to see my girl. I said, "I'm going to church." Mother looked up. She said, "I thought it was your turn to usher last night." I said, "Well, it was, but I'm going to hear what this man has to say tonight." I don't remember very much, but I remember Mother and Dad looking at each other and their eyes locked. And then we went on with our meal, and I excused myself and went to church. That night the man preached from Isaiah 55. "Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters. And he that hath no money, come ye buy and drink. Come buy wine, buy milk, without money, without price." And then at the close of that, he did something that I had never heard. Matter of fact, we had little booklets that had different songs in them, and the song that they sang was, "Just as I am, without one plea, but that thy blood was shed for me, and that thou bidst me come to thee, O Lamb of God, I come. And so the evangelist said, anybody that would like to come forward and kneel at the front and open your heart and receive Jesus Christ and have your sins forgiven, come forward. And I thought the whole church had the same feeling I did. And I thought, well, I better get up there in a hurry if I'm going to find room. But I was the only one. Anyway, I remember after I prayed and asked Jesus Christ to come into my heart and wash away my sins and get rid of this monkey off my back called sin, I don't know how long I stayed on my knees, but when I got up to my knees, there was nobody there. The evangelist, the pastor, and over here, right at the edge of that front seat, was Mr. Jennings. The man that had witnessed to me on the street corner. You see, he had continued to pray for me and saw me through where I got to know Jesus Christ as Savior. I walked around, kissed my Sunday school teacher, as I told you last night or night before last, and so on. Now, something happened wonderfully in my heart. I knew I was a Christian, and I knew immediately I could pray. And I wanted to tell a lot of people about it. I started to tell some people that didn't know what I was saying. The next day at school I found out. "Hey, Hunter, I heard you got religion last night." I thought, hey, maybe that's what it was. So I said, "Lord, maybe I got religion last night." Nobody said anything to me. Another fellow said, "Hey, Hunter, I heard you got saved." So I went, "Hey, Lord, I guess that's what happened. Maybe I got saved last night." I didn't know anything. I got converted. I got religion. I got saved. Other people heard about it. But nobody said, now what you need to do is to learn John 3:16 or Romans 8:1 or some such thing. Nobody gave me a Bible that says, "Here, eat," or anything. All I had was a big kiss. 2 handshakes and a big kiss. Well, my testimony is terrible. I threw away my lucky strikes, I told you that. And I began to sin in the daytime and confess my sins at night. And I did that for 9 months. Sin in the daytime, confess my sins at night. I knew I could pray, and I knew God forgave me. But it was awful. After 9 months, I said to the Lord, I'm through! I can't do it. I went out and bought a pack of Lucky Strikes. Oh. I called up Ed Moon and I said, anything cooking? He says, yeah, we've got one tonight. You want to play? I said, yeah. He says, it's at 9 o'clock with the Odd Fella. So I got my trumpet out, practiced up a little bit, went down there and joined the dance band again. I just, back to the old life. I thought I'd just forget all about the Lord. But if you've ever met the Lord, you can't forget him. You can't forget him. And even though I said I'm true to him, he wasn't through with me. Well, 3 years later, I was married, and a father. I had 2 years of college under my belt. I signed up to be deferred from the Air Force, or the Army, for 3 years. If I signed up for the Air Force, it was called the Army Air Force in those days, they would guarantee me 3 years deferment to finish my college. 3 months later, I got the call. They gave me 3 years deferment. 3 months I was in the service. Well, it probably rescued me. I don't know. I was so uptight and confused. I married early, not with my folks' blessing, but with their permission, And I came home with that beautiful little Kentucky belle I met when I was a freshman and she was a sophomore. That's 45 years ago now. We're still in love. Isn't that interesting? But anyhow, she's still my little Kentucky belle. But I was going to show the world and my folks, that I could do it. I got into some situations, financially and so on, that I had to pray. But all I did was use the Lord, when I really got into a tough spot, when you get right down on your back, you can look straight up, and he's there. It was embarrassing to call on him sometimes. But anyway, I was working 3 to 11 on the Erie Railroad. See, when I came home from Kentucky with my wife, I thought Dad would make me the senior vice president of the Hunter Motor Company. But after I waited around for the call, Dad came to me one day and he said, well, son, he said, if you're going to support that little Kentucky belle, looks like you better get a job, hadn't you? Yeah. One of the best things he ever did for me. Yeah. He didn't have to tell me twice. I went down to the railroad, found out they were hiring, and I hired on as a machinist helper. Anybody that had hair and could walk straight up could get a job in those days because all the good guys had gone off to the service. See? So I started on at 78 cents an hour. I was making $1 million. I got so low, I bought me a nice little Ford. It was a nice little car. It was tan with black fenders, a coupe, with suicide doors. Open this up. But anyway, I worked nights, went to school days. I was just wearing myself out. I took all the overtime I could get, time and a half. Why? My little girl was growing up, didn't even know her daddy. I would come home after 11 o'clock after my wife had put the baby to bed, and I'd wake her up just so she'd know who I was. I told her to say, Dada, Dada, Dada. I wanted her to say Dada first. She was so hungry for that bottle, I would take the bottle, and I would tease her with the bottle, and I got so I could pull her right up out of the crib with the bottle. Whoop! Oh, boy, you shouldn't marry that young. I mean it. My dear little girl is 44 years old, and she's in Japan right now. She's a fashion designer that tells everybody about Jesus, and I'm proud of her. But anyway, nobody said, read this. Nobody gave me a Bible verse. Nobody gave me a tract. So when I went into service, I went to the Pittsburgh post office. After I signed in, right outside the post office door, in the hallway there was a tree, a trunk of a tree looked like. There were 6 guys standing there, one on each side of the trunk of this tree, and they were peeling bark off this tree and handing it to people that they went out. I couldn't tell what it was. Anyway, I saw they were giving these things away, so I walked by. God bless you, son. Praise the Lord, son. May the Lord protect you, son. I was walking by. And what they were giving out? Olive drab New Testament. had a great big stack of them there, you know. It looked like a tree trunk. They were just peeling them off and handing them out to the guys getting in service. New Testament. I know what that was. Put it in my pocket. When I got down to Miami, where I took my basic training, I took my New Testament and I put it on the top of my footlocker to impress the sergeant. You know, that's where I kept my underwear all rolled up on the top of the footlocker, and my handkerchiefs all rolled up in the footlocker and everything. The ones that we wore, we kept underneath there. The ones for inspection were on top. But my New Testament was right there. I didn't read it. Nobody said read it or anything. I went to church on Sunday just because we got out, you know. So you get out to go to church, you go to church. Man, anything but that marching. Whoa! Well, I became a pilot, second lieutenant. I graduated April 1944. The next month, I picked up my crew in Wichita, Kansas. We did some training there, and then went down to Fort Worth and practiced bombing missions. And then, when we got ready to go overseas in Norfolk, Virginia, everybody was going to the PX and buying a cover that went right over the outside of the New Testament, and it said on there, "May the Lord protect you." The cover was steel, and then it was plated with brass, and you slipped it right over the cover of the New Testament, and you put it in your flight jacket right over your heart, and it was guaranteed to stop a 50 caliber bullet at so many yards. Well, everybody got one, and I got one, and I put it on my New Testament, and I put it in my flight jacket. It was over my heart, and I had the protection. I flew my first 2 bombing missions as a co-pilot. The pilots don't like to have the co-pilots from another crew come and fly with them. They treat you like mud because you are bad luck on their plane. However, those 2 flights were milk runs, you know. That means to say there was very little flak came up. We saw no enemy aircraft, dropped the bombs, and came home. 4 hours up, dropped bomb, 4 hours back. I flew out of southern Italy, and I bombed southern Germany and Austria and Yugoslavia and northern Italy and so on. I got my own crew, and I told the guys, I said, it's just exactly like the bombing practice runs that we had in Texas. And I said, we just follow through and everything. I said, there's no flak comes up. You can see the flak down there, but nothing is heavy enough to find us. No enemy aircraft. Don't worry about it. So we went through our routine and everything, got out to the apron and were next in line and took off and headed up for Linz, Austria. Linz, Austria, we heard from the briefing officer, was a very well-defended target. I never thought thing one about it. But when we got up to the IP, the initial point, where we turn on for the bombing at about 30,000 feet, just as soon as we turned on the IP and had to make our airplanes like a platform, we flew then with the automatic pilot so that we wouldn't move at all, so that the bombs would drop precisely and accurately. All of a sudden, the flak came up and started exploding. The plane on my right exploded and blew up. Over on the left side, I saw fire. You know, when you see the flak come up and you can see color, somebody needs to handle those couple of boys there, not listening, because you don't know what color means, okay? When you can see color, when the flak explodes, that's very close. When you can hear it rattle against the plane, that's very close. When you look out and see fire in the other airplane on the left, and you see the parachutes go out, you know something has happened. I was scared to death. We wore heavy flak suits that we put on just a few minutes before we went over this bomb run. We wore a helmet exactly like the men who were privates in the infantry. We had on our faces the oxygen mask and our goggles. We were on oxygen. We were breathing heavy. I looked over to my co-pilot. His eyes were as big as his goggles, and I'm sure mine were too. We all had a brownout, which means that you cannot control your bowels. You cannot control your urine.
Everybody had it. One of the pieces of flak came through the nose of the airplane, went through between the legs of my co-pilot. His seat went back like that. I thought he was dead. It went back. You see, it goes in about the size of 2 inches, and it picks up the metal, and it rolls like a snowball, and it's out the back about the size of your head. Nobody was hit. We came off, and I got the report from the crew, and they told about the damage to the airplane, and that the flak had severed the aileron controls and so on, and my aircraft engineer had fixed it and so on, and each one of the 10 men had reported nobody was hit. We headed for home. But I was so shaken up. My pilot was so bad shape. He didn't get hurt. He got knocked over, but his seat wouldn't come up where he could fly and so on. And I didn't think I could fly the airplane home. And I asked God, please, God, help me to get the crew home. I don't know how we landed the airplane. They counted the airplane, holes in the airplane, 153, some of them as big as your head. I don't know how we landed. We lost a number of men on that mission. And I was so shaken up. I didn't think I could ever fly it. As soon as we debriefed, they gave us a shot of whiskey. I took care of my own parachute. Nobody takes care of your parachute when you're in combat. You take care of it yourself. You don't trust anybody to touch it. I went into the bachelor officer's quarters and went to the latrine, cleaned up myself, reached into my flight jacket, and took out my New Testament. I began to read the New Testament. Food at last. Listen to what I read. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God. In Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou see, and behold the reward of the wicked. Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For He shall give the angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and the adder, the young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet. Because He has set His love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he hath known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation. I said, thank you, Lord. I came back into a fellowship with Jesus Christ in the toilet in Manduria, Italy, in the Second World War. I began to read my Bible, my New Testament, every day. I figured my next mission I was going to meet the author. I just felt, it's going to be. And I saturated myself with the Bible. 2 days later, when we went out to fly, we stopped just before we took off, and I said, everybody on intercom, this is the pilot speaking, let's pray. We prayed that our bombs would not fall on anybody's house, that we would hit our target squarely and be able to get home all right, get the war over quickly so we could go to be with our families. And if there's anybody flying on board today on this ship, that they might come to know Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. You know that God just gave me the peace that passeth all understanding. I was able to fly. I flew 33 missions. 29 of those missions we got hit, had holes in the airplane when we got back. One time I was knocked down, landed short in Yugoslavia. By the way, the plane that has the markings that I landed in Yugoslavia that was lost, so far as I know, brand new airplane, lost to the United States government. I had to land it because we lost 2 engines on it. A B-24 theoretically won't fly with 4 engines, but it won't fly with 2, I'll tell you that. And so we landed short. Kind of a storybook thing. We were there waiting. Of course, they knew we landed short, and they were going to send a rescue squad out for us. But while we were there, my radio operator said, take a look over to the right. I looked over to the right, and here was a whole big bunch of smoke going up in the air. And you know what it was? A whole troop of cavalry. Here was a bunch of guys on great big old horses charging toward that airplane. And those guys had, extra ammunition strapped across them and holding their guns up like this. And they came around the airplane and cried out, "Party Johnny, Party Johnny." This is partisan, see. The Yugoslavians were in a civil war at the same time. Anyway, we could have just riddled them with our machine guns and everything. We didn't do anything. We just waited. I told the guys not to fire on them. And they just went around and took off. Well, the next day, C-47 came in and took us out. But anyhow, I'm going to say this. Some of my crew members came to know Jesus Christ as Savior. One man who was a very wicked man, he had a daughter later when he got home. And he told the daughter about his pilot. His wife knew the Lord, and she prayed for her husband for years and years. I don't know if Vic ever come to know the Lord as his Savior or not, but Nancy did. I've never met Nancy. I've talked to her on the phone. That's his daughter. And she went out as a full-time missionary to Mexico. Really blessed my heart. I want to tell you tonight, it's so important. It's so important to read the Bible. It's so important to study the Bible. It's so important to memorize the Word of God to give us strength that we might tell other people. God blessed me in a wonderful way. My crew members came to see me years later. I still get Christmas cards from them. Some of them still need to know the Lord. Some of them do know the Lord. Some of them are retired. It makes me really feel old. They were just little boys when they flew with me. And I was just a little boy that was married and had a baby. God brought me back. I got back, finished my college, started out making $1 million, on the front end of it, working at the Hunter Motor Company. It wasn't long. One day, I sold the car to a Missionary Alliance minister. Now, I want to tell you something. That was a mistake. Not quite. I can see it now. It wasn't quite like this, but he pulled out his pen to write the check, and he says, Brother Hunter, I understand you play a trumpet. Well, I said, I play a trumpet. He said, did you ever play in the church? And I said, well, I can't tell you I never did. I didn't play in the church. He's getting ready to sign the check. He said, would you play for our young people on Monday night? Well, what would you do if a guy just bought a new Chrysler? You say yes, and he signed the check and handed it to him. Monday night. I hadn't played my horn for a long time. I wondered, what will I play, Lord? I'd tell you a good song that the young people would really like. Take up thy cross and follow me. So I went home, memorized the song, memorized the words. Now, if you play an instrument and you're not singing, to project the message of the song through a horn, you sort of sing the song to yourself and let it come out. So what do you think I'm doing? I've memorized the words and I'm playing the horn, Take up thy cross and follow me. I hear his gentle voice call. How should I give a lesser sacrifice when Jesus gave his own? A little red-headed guy, about 12 years old, just before I got up to play, stood up to give a testimony. And I said, Lord, I'd do anything if I could give a testimony like that little red-headed guy. up front, played my horn. The Lord spoke to my heart through that song. Why don't you take up your cross and follow me? Why don't you be the one to follow me? At the close of the service, the pastor gave an invitation, said, is there anybody here that like to surrender his life to the Lord? I said, I want to. I came forward and gave a testimony, and I told the guys, just kids. I said, I'm going out from here to tell everybody about Jesus. I went over to the garage and called Dad up. I said, Dad, come out of the garage. Let me just talk to you. Dad had kept the business for me, you see, my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law was also a pilot in the Air Force. We got back, we both built us a new house, started our families, finished our college, selling cars, hand over fist, Dad making trips out to Arizona and back, come back and rescue the mission, rescue the business from the kids. But he kept it for us. I said, Dad, I've decided tonight to surrender my life to the Lord's service. Dad wept. He said, you've made the right choice. This stuff will all pass away. He said, well, he said, you better decide where you're going to go to college or seminary. So we decided, and I went up to Minneapolis, and that's where I met Laurie and later on Larry Hart. That's a long time ago, 1948. How many are here tonight that weren't born in 1948? About half of you. Well, I want to tell you something. There's another song that we sang tonight, Sweeter as the Years Go By. I want to tell you something. It's the truth. It's all true. To think that we can have our sins forgiven. To think that we can have power over our own bodies. To think that we can live a life of victory. To think that God would love us so much that we would have an opportunity to share the gospel with everybody. Isn't he wonderful? And you know what? The best is yet to come. That's the part that's really exciting. Now I want you to turn to Romans chapter 11 and read verse 25 while I show you my picture. Here it comes with the gospel gimmick. Okay, you see it? Can you see it way back there? You know what it is? Does it look like a picture of Jesus? Is it in the Garden of Gethsemane? Is that what that picture is? I think that's the same as over here. Is it?